So I'm delighted that you're all here and that I gather that most of you have seen the exhibition. You've all had a chance to see the exhibition. It's fantastic. So I'm just here to share a few words, but also to take questions. I'd like to start by thanking Mary in particular and giving you the story of how this exhibition came to Weston, All Saints Weston in the first place. Because back in February, Jenny Riverola, the poet, and I came to visit Thames Ditton to do some research on the ground. And we knocked on the door of the Elms because we knew that that was Phyllis's house. And we were delighted to see what a beautiful house it was and to see the Milburn Pond. And it was the most freezing day you could possibly imagine. So we parked our car outside the Elms and we hopped out and thought, this is very, very cold. Knocked on the door, nobody answered. We thought, okay, well, we'll walk down towards what looks like a church. We noticed the tower and started walking down. And we found Mary, the only person who we saw on the streets that day. And I thought, oh, she looks like a friendly person. And our idea was to try and find out who lived in the house now and whether we could talk to them and find out about their part in this history, whether they knew about it, and whether they could help us. And Mary very kindly brought us into the church. I said, it's too cold to stand outside, come in, come in. And it was at that point that we met Reverend Johnson, who told us, very kindly offered us hot chocolate and told us about the history of the church. So I understand it was founded in 1938, and that it has been archived, and it was a beautiful church. We were very impressed when we walked in. And Reverend Johnson said, so what are you doing here? What brings you here? And we started to tell him the story of Felicia Brown, who is, as you have all gathered by now, a unique figure in the history of British involvement in the Spanish Civil War. She is literally the only woman to have taken on a competent role, very extraordinarily to think that she was a trained artist and a political activist in an amateur way, and that she ended up in the situation that she did. So we described this to Reverend Johnson, that we were going to have an exhibition and we were looking for venues for the exhibition and we were doing research in the area. And within 2 minutes, he said, have the exhibition here. So that is the story of how it comes to be in this place. And the more we thought about it, the more we thought, well, this is fantastic. Not only is it a beautiful, a wonderful location, but also it's a symbolic location, because what we really wanted to do in the 80th anniversary of this extraordinary lady's death was to bring the history back to the local area so that local people could know about her. Because as we began to approach more people, we realised that we went to the library and nobody had heard of her there, even though there were people who were involved in local history at the library. We talked to various other people and it was all news to them. So we thought, this is terrific. We can actually contribute in some way to people taking this history on. So that's how we came to be here. And then also, just to say, a lovely comment from Joy is how beautiful the exhibition looks in the church, which is, it's lovely to hear. The exhibition was actually designed for the church. Once we knew this was the location, even the measurements of the paintings are based on the measurements of the architecture. And the idea of having a poem on one side of the window and a painting on the other side of the window were directly a response to the architectural space. So it's what we call in art terms a site-specific exhibition, which means it will never be seen in the same way again, even if it travels, which we hope it will. We hope it will tour around the country. We've had many requests for it to tour already, so we hope that that will be its future. But that this has been a unique one-off event, which has been incredibly meaningful to the people who've been involved, so we're very grateful that this community has hosted us. I don't really feel I want to say too much more about Felicia at this point, but if there are any questions about the exhibition or about Felicia, I'm very happy to answer those questions.
Were you able to get into her house? Did you get into it?
We didn't get into the house. No, unfortunately, no, we didn't. There's a school attached. Yes, so there's a school. We struggled to work out the architecture actually because it looks like they share a chimney perhaps, or there's a chimney from the house that is slightly behind the school building. So we wondered if the school had been added later or whether those were built at the same time. I'm not sure. But
you couldn't get into it. Have you not tried again?
I think it's something we might continue to do.
Yes.
I mean, one of the great difficulties, one of the great joys, and also the great difficulties of the project was that we have so much information coming in from so many different sources, and yet we had this work to push through because, of course, it was the anniversary year, 80th anniversary of her death, and we really wanted to have our project ready in time to commemorate that. But yes, we'd like to continue looking at the house.
That's really interesting, and actually it makes me really want to now go and look at the exhibition again.
Oh, thank you.
Because it'll mean more.
Thank you very much.
Excuses.
Yes, question?
Bearing in mind she was a member of the Communist Party, if you could think inside her head, do you think she would be happy with an exhibition in a church? She married a...
That's a really, really good question, and I struggled with it.
Yeah.
It's not something that we didn't consider. We did consider, but we felt that the generosity of spirit of the church community here was almost above that. It was almost, it seemed to me above politics in a way, and that this is about a human life and about sacrifice. And I just hope that Felicia would be pleased to be remembered, and that her life has been significant. That's my hope. I kind of felt that maybe some of the people who follow from a political perspective would disapprove, but we haven't had that either. So I think people are taking this in the spirit of the commemoration, and that it's quite fitting, really. That's what I hope anyhow. But it's a really good question.
Thank you.
My father was the chief of the Communist Party
Oh wow.
in a small town called Cleveland.
Right.
And he was really Christian, he was Orthodox.
Yes.
He didn't tell me this, he didn't say I'm a Christian or anything. Maybe they were different.
Have a look at the booklet. You don't have to stand up to read the poems to see the pictures. You've got the two of them in the booklet. There's so much detail in the booklet. So, and it's brilliant. And then afterwards, as the lady who just left said, then perhaps go back and have another look at the paintings. And it'll mean so much more to you. It really does.